안녕하세요. I'm Dr. Riberira. I'm a resident physician in emergency medicine at Stanford Hospital, and I'm the CEO of SimX. I brought with me today Dr. Srihari Namperamal, he's our Chief Medical Officer, and Stadelman, our Chief Technology Officer. And together, we're building what we believe to be the first comprehensive simulation training platform based in augmented reality. Now let me tell you why that's important. Imagine for a moment you're in a busy emergency department. It's the middle of the night, but the lights are bright and the rooms are full. You hear on the overhead that a new ambulance has arrived. It's carrying an elderly gentleman who was found unconscious in the park. Now, he had pulses in the field, but as you move him to a hospital bed, you realize that his pulse is gone. His heart has stopped. So you start CPR. Another team member places an IV. A third one is putting a tube down his throat, trying to get him to breathe, while a fourth is readying the defibrillator. You deliver a shock, but with no effect. You continue CPR, and you give him a dose of epinephrine, remembering that it can be a potent cardiac stimulator in these circumstances. Another round of CPR, and another shock. And finally, his pulse returns. You continue to investigate the patient and realize that he's got a pretty big head wound. So you call the neurosurgeons and you admit him to the ICU. Now, the patient survived this encounter, but you can't help but wonder, did we do everything right? Did we move fast enough? Did I even give the right dose of epinephrine? Should we have noticed that head wound earlier? And if we did, what would we have done differently? So you and your team take off your augmented reality glasses. The virtual patient and the EMTs melt away, and you're left standing in an empty hospital room. You talk about the case. What went well? What would you do differently? What will you do differently next time to make sure that your patient has the best outcome possible? And then you put the glasses back on, ready for the next case. And just like a real emergency department, it could be anything. It could be a young boy in anaphylactic shock. It could be an elderly couple in a rollover car accident. It could be a pregnant patient who's seizing. This is the vision of what we are creating with SimX. A simulation training platform that allows you to hone your skills in an environment that is realistic but safe. Now, of course, we weren't the first to invent medical simulation or simulation in general. We're going to bring out our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Namperamal, who's going to tell us a little bit about where simulation came from and where it's going.
Now, simulation of all types has existed for thousands of years. Classically, medical simulation consisted of using animals, human cadavers, and simple models to teach anatomy and surgical techniques. But responsive simulation did not exist. Then the technology improved. In the years after the First World War, the US military invested significantly in simulation technologies, particularly for flight training. New responsive simulators enabled pilots to train to react correctly to new situations by correctly and accurately mimicking flight mechanics. Similar to medicine, there was no margin for error in piloting, and this enabled the training they needed. This was the inspiration for modern medical simulation. In the late 1960s, medicine began to create simulators that were analogs to the now common flight simulators that were available. But they were limited in capability and not widely adopted. That was until the late 90s. Specifically, in 1999, the American Institute of Medicine was tasked with the job of assessing the quality of healthcare in the United States. And what they found shocked Americans. They reported that there was between 44,000 and 98,000 preventable deaths due to medical errors alone each year in the United States, with up to $80 billion wasted. That was more deaths each year in the US than motor vehicle accidents, breast cancer, and AIDS combined. Why so many errors? Well, to be frank, medicine is hard. And even the best of us can make deadly mistakes. But these mistakes are rarely due to gaps in knowledge. Rather, medical errors are typically due to problems with clinical reasoning, difficulties with communication, difficulties in teamwork, in organization, and simple fatigue. And in fact, in the years that followed that report, a surge of research in America explored how to reduce these medical errors and how to improve patient care in general. At the same time, a new generation of high-fidelity medical simulators had emerged. These new medical simulators could much more accurately replicate both the drama and stress of real medical cases. And in 2003, the US military, once again a leader in simulation technology, demonstrated that the use of these advanced simulators could drastically reduce medical errors due to problems in clinical reasoning by up to 7 times, from 31% down to almost 4.5%. And the world took notice. In the years that have followed, medical simulation has exploded throughout the world. And in fact, it is now an integral part of medical education in the US. Why? Because it works. Medical simulation teaches physicians skills that are directly transferable from the simulator to real patient care. Medical simulation allows one to reduce errors in team communication, in organization. Medical simulation puts physicians in repetitive, stressful patient care environments. And it enables the clinical reasoning cycle over and over and over again, but without the threat to real patients. This leads to better and faster medical care that can even combat the effects of fatigue. And so today, medical simulation is part of every single training program in every single medical school in the United States at a significant cost. The state of the art in medical simulation uses complex and responsive medical mannequins. They can produce pulses, they can produce heart sounds, and much more, at the cost of up to $500,000 per unit. In fact, we now have entire buildings, multi-million-dollar structures dedicated solely to medical simulation, such as the one depicted here at Dr. Riberira's own Stanford University Medical Center. In order to mitigate these costs, we've developed a wide variety of simulation options, each with their own trade-off between cost and fidelity. We use both simple and complex medical simulators. We use screen-based simulation, similar to video games. We use live patient actors, play acting, sometimes using Hollywood-style makeup to dress them up and mimic real medical conditions. And we use surgical task trainers to perfect our procedural skills. But at Simex, we realized that with the power of augmented reality, we could take medical simulation to whole new heights of fidelity, and at the cost of software. I'll let Dr. Riberira go into a little more detail on that.
Thank you, Dr. Shri. That's exactly right. At Simex, our software allows you to project a virtual patient onto any empty hospital bed and run full medical cases around them. Now, this is not virtual reality. This is augmented reality. That means you can see the room around you. You can still look your team members right in the eyes. It simply looks as if a virtual patient has been pulled into the real world with you. Now, this is so important for a couple reasons. One, it means no longer do you need to build a multi-million-dollar simulation center just to have a realistic environment in which to train. Simulation has suddenly become accessible to any hospital with an empty room. It also means that you can train in the same environment in which you work, with the same people that you work with, using the same tools that you use to treat real patients every day. This means that you can build that kinesthetic learning, that muscle memory, that's such a critical part of why simulation is effective in the first place. So that when you're again in that same room, working with those same people, using those same tools, but you're treating a real patient instead of a virtual patient, you won't have to think twice. You'll know what to do. And at SimX, because our patients are virtual, they're so much more flexible. Instead of just the young, athletic male that's represented by so many other simulation products, with SimX, your patient can be a baby. They can be a grandmother. They can be obese. They can be vomiting or missing limbs. They can talk to you. Your patient could be pregnant and could give birth over the course of your scenario, and that's very doable with a virtual patient, but would be impossible or nearly impossible with a physical simulation mannequin. Now you may ask, how is this done? We use cutting-edge augmented reality hardware that allows us to create a simulation environment that's more immersive than anything that's been done before. But I'm going to let our Chief Technology Officer, Stadelman, tell you a little bit more about how it works.
Thank you, Ryan. Simex is built on the Meta augmented reality platform. Meta is a company based in California nearby, and they provide both the hardware and the software development kit for augmented reality applications. What you'll see today are examples of the developer kit device. The consumer edition is coming shortly. Augmented reality glasses have transparent lenses, so you can see your surroundings. They contain integrated motion units that take inputs from gyroscopes, accelerometers, and compass to provide rotation and relative position information. The glasses have external-facing color, RGB, and depth sensor cameras that allow gesture detection, object recognition, and point location. The glasses are connected to portable computing devices that have Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connectivity. Simex is developing our application content in the Unity 3D game engine. We actually see some standardization in the Unity platform due to its support in the nascent AR and virtual reality, VR, industries by Meta on the AR side and especially Oculus on the VR side. Unity is a cross-platform engine, which means you can develop content for iOS and Android, desktop and web, and port that content directly into augmented reality style applications seamlessly. It also means that our standard animation workflows using tools like Maya and Blender and a growing number of low-cost motion capture tools like FaceShift are fully supported. Now, the distinct feature which distinguishes AR glasses from VR glasses, is the external-facing RGB and depth sensor cameras. The RGB and depth sensor combination has been popularized in modern consumer gaming by the Microsoft Kinect. The Kinect is a mounted sensor, and Microsoft Xbox players have a designated game space where they can be recognized by the system. What we see with the Meta AR glasses is the sensors are now mounted on the glasses facing outward. This is a significant paradigm shift from a third-person perspective to a first-person perspective. No longer are the sensors only detecting the location and position of the players, but also of their surroundings. This allows us to develop new applications that are incredibly portable. The applications can follow the wearers wherever they go, and we are no longer constrained to fixed location sensor arrays. It also means that we can include physical objects in our applications using markers, surface tracking, and object recognition. And we can combine that with virtual objects in new and imaginative applications. Simex is using these new AR capabilities in medical simulation to position our virtual patients and our medical monitors on any surface in any space. We are tracking the location of our participants' hands and of tools that they're holding. And we detect when they touch specific regions on our virtual patients. We use this to play media like heartbeat audio, ultrasound video, and to trigger animations and interactions that make our patients responsive and lifelike. We are incredibly excited to now share with you this technology in action.
So today, now we're going to show you how this works, okay? Today we're going to show you what is effectively early stage software on early stage hardware. We're going to demonstrate it through 3 separate cases, each of which show a little bit about how augmented reality is the future of simulation training. Now, in medicine, we know that so much of what we do is based on what we see. And in our first case, Dr. Shri is going to examine a pediatric patient, a situation for which that's especially true. And in this case, this patient was brought in by his mother for 3 days of increased fussiness. Dr. Shri.
So, first thing I notice when I approach the patient is this is approximately a 10-month-old child who's obviously uncomfortable, but awake and alert, which is automatically reassuring to me. When I look up at my vital signs monitor, I see the patient is febrile with a temperature of 39 degrees Celsius. Likely at this point, I can already say that this is probably an infectious source. Now in pediatrics, a vital part of the exam is in looking at the skin. Now, as I come close to my patient and look at the skin, I can see what appears to be a maculopapular rash, or a morbilliform rash, as we would say in medicine. If this patient had not been vaccinated, I would be very worried about measles. However, an important feature is that this is not a petechial rash, which would be more concerning for a serious and deadly bacterial infection, such as meningitis. Based on the fact that the patient's obviously awake and alert with this type of rash, I can guess that this might be due to a viral infection, and the patient will probably be okay.
Okay, fantastic. So here Dr. Shri makes the diagnosis without even touching his patient. And based on what? Based on the vitals, yes, but also based on the rash, based on his general appearance. Both things that are extremely difficult to portray in current simulation technology, but which provide so much important information to the medical practitioner. Now, of course, we know it's not just how a patient looks, it's also how they respond to you. In our next case, Dr. Shri examines an elderly man that was brought in by ambulance after he suddenly had difficulty walking at home.
Hello, sir. What brings you in today?
It's hard to make words. I feel like I can't control the side of my face.
Yes, I could see that. It looks like the right side of your face is not moving very well, and I can clearly see you're having trouble talking. Let me do a little bit more of an exam. Can I have you lift your arms up in the air for me? Seems like you're having trouble lifting that right arm. Okay, let me see you lift your legs up. Can you put them up in the air? As high as you can. It's really important, sir. Okay. It looks like your entire right side is a little numb and not really moving.
Okay. Now Dr. Shri takes the same stethoscope that he uses every day to treat real patients to listen for heart sounds on his virtual patient. First, at the aortic valve. Then he listens for the characteristic sounds of the pulmonic.
There's no sign of atrial fibrillation and no murmurs.
With the ability to physically interact with holographic patients, physicians don't have to pretend. They can use real tools to get real responses, all in virtual space.
Okay, sir. I'm really worried you could be having a stroke. What I'm going to do is have our neurologist come down and evaluate you, and we'll get you to the CT scanner to get a picture of your brain, okay? Don't worry, we're going to take good care of you.
All right, again, Dr. Shri makes a diagnosis based on the way that his patient interacts with him. So now we have the ability to interact with virtual patients. We have representatives of important visual signs and symptoms, and we have the capability to use real tools to get real heart sounds, real results. Putting that together, we can make full medical augmented reality cases. In our final case, imagine again that you're in a busy emergency department. A frantic mother brings in her daughter after a fall at the park. She slipped on the monkey bars, hit her head on a pole, and now she's got a splitting headache. Dr. Shri will do a quick evaluation and try to determine if she has any serious injuries.
Hey, kiddo. I'm just going to do a quick exam, okay? Okay, does your head hurt? Okay, I'm sorry. Does anything else hurt? Good, good. Can you do me a favor and open your mouth? Excellent. The patient's obviously awake and alert, and the oropharynx is clear. Okay, I'm going to take a listen to your heart now. Okay. Regular rate and rhythm, no murmurs, clicks, gallops, or rubs. Sounds normal. Okay. I'm going to use my ultrasound to take a look inside your belly and make sure everything's all right. First, looking at the right upper quadrant, I can see the liver and the kidney. There's no evidence of free fluid, so right now, no evidence of bleeding inside the abdomen. I can now look at the heart. I see normal cardiac motion and no evidence of pericardial effusion or trauma to the heart. Excellent. I'll now look at the bladder. Oh, Dr. Riberira, the patient appears to be having a seizure. Please get 5 milligrams of iron midazolam, stat.
Drawing up 5 milligrams of midazolam.
Okay, the patient's tachycardic and her breathing's erratic. We need that 5 milligrams in now.
Okay, I'll deliver it to her thigh.
Okay. It looks like she stopped seizing. And our vital signs have stabilized. Good job. Okay, we'll get neurosurgery here right away.
All right. Now, hopefully you can see from those 3 cases the tremendous power of augmented reality medical simulation. But what we've shown you here today is just the beginning. The case execution engine is just one small part of what we're building here at SimX. So in addition to the execution engine, we have case authoring software that allows experts in any field to develop cases that are goal-directed and can allow their trainees to learn important skills. We also have case moderating software. In simulation, it's important to be able to modify case parameters in real time to adapt the case to the needs of your trainees. We also have powerful reporting tools so that when a case is completed and you're doing that all-important debrief, you can look back and see the case through the eyes of any participant. And you can see a detailed timeline that allows you to see down to the second when interventions were given and how decisions were made. We also have a case marketplace, which we're extremely excited about because of the potential that it has to change the way that information is shared in the simulation community. Now, if you want to run a simulation program, you need to hire a team of simulation experts to develop your cases in-house and run them with your trainees. Now, we want to create a platform that would allow places like Harvard, like Stanford, like Konkuk University to take their experts, author medical cases, and distribute them across the world. In the same way that, say, Harvard Business School authors business school cases and distributes them and licenses them to other business schools. Now, imagine the power of this system. Imagine if it existed right now while we're going through our Ebola crisis. If places like the CDC, the WHO, and experts across the world were able to quickly push out the latest information on Ebola treatment, on how to don protective equipment, and all-important decontamination procedures. Now, beyond this, this alone would save lives, but this is not the only way that augmented reality will save lives in medicine. Imagine for a moment being able to take CT data, MRI data, and project it directly over the bodies of your patients so that you could peer into their bones, into their muscles with the same ease that you can examine a rash. Imagine being able to study anatomy in detail from the comfort of your own home, eliminating the need for a cadaver lab. Or in the operating room, being able to project important surgical landmarks onto your patient at the time of surgery, or even just being able to see their vitals in a heads-up display so that you never need to take your attention away from the needs of your patient. And of course, it hasn't escaped our attention that the system we're building has tremendous applications outside of medicine as well. Imagine a mechanic being able to project in front of them the engines of any car in the world, to take it apart and to analyze it. Or a police academy to simulate dangerous negotiation and combat scenarios safely within their own halls. Or imagine being able to use augmented reality to train yourself to play the piano, to improve your golf swing, or to cook that new recipe. Simulation is the most effective way for humans to learn new skills. And through augmented reality, simulation training has suddenly become so much more accessible and practical for hundreds of industries. Augmented reality and SimX are going to change the way that people learn. That change is coming right around the corner. What we've shown you today is simply the beginning. 감사합니다.